Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to this week's episode of Altitude Adjustment. My name is Mario Vitanzi, and I am joined by the venerable Kodiak Broncos. Why? Well, you might have heard that Sean Payton, for one of the first times in his entire career, will not be calling plays. Instead, it will be Davis Webb, and we're here to tell you why it really doesn't matter. My name's Mario Vitanzi. That's Kodiak Broncos. This is Altitude Adjustment.
Hey, feel I'm in the mood for a switch up. I hit the function, hit the rose till I hiccup. I hit the stage and leave with money that's a stick up.
Kodiak, I wasn't sure if I should announce you as Kodiak or give the people your government name, but I feel like you've done a good job concealing that, so we're just going to stick with Kodiak. Before we get started, why don't you plug where the people can find your incredible work? Where can they see more of you?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on the show, Mario Vitanzi. I know I'm not as good of a coach as Coach Pat, but you know what? You're still going to get incredible Broncos insight and knowledge on tonight's edition of Altitude Adjustment. But either way, you can find me at Twitter at Kodiak Broncos, or you can follow me on YouTube at Kodiak Broncos, or TikTok at Kodiak Broncos. And also, if you guys follow David Talks Broncos, Marquee Sports Denver, I do Horsepower Hour with them every single Monday night. So you can catch me on there as well. There's plenty of me to go around, and there's going to be plenty of us to go around all offseason as we approach free agency and the draft.
Well, some people are saying that your show is, in fact, one of the best Broncos podcasts out there because you guys do so much more, just like Pat and I. You don't come on your show and say, today we're going to talk about this, and here are 18 of our sponsors, and then we talk about this for 3 minutes, and thanks again to our sponsors, and we're done. No, we like to go in depth and give people actual, real, tangible conversation and information while also being entertaining. And I think the entertaining part, Kodiak, is something that you and I do best. And it's a big reason why I brought you on the show. Pat was unable to make it. So I was like, who is entertaining, but also informative? And of course, you were at the top of the list. So thank you so much for joining me. Oh, man, the legend himself, Respect My Co's, is here. And he's already dead. He's dead from the comments. Mikey, thank you so much for watching. Here's my thoughts on the Sean Payton situation, Kodiak, and then I'll kick it to you, and you can just kind of run with this. Here's why I don't think it's a big deal. And I'm going to preface this by saying I talked to some of the offensive players, and they had all kind of echoed the same sentiment of Sean Payton is an elite game planner. In terms of putting together a script, putting together a pile of plays that is going to expose the defense and is going to work, he's elite. He's one of, if not the best in the league. And I think a lot of people forget that that's really the major part of play calling. So when fans and people on Twitter are saying, oh, he needs to hand over play calling duties, he needs to hand over play calling duties, they're right in a wrong way. Well, let me explain what I mean by that. Like I just said, the majority of what you're doing in terms of calling plays, it's the game planning. What makes Sean Payton great and such a good coach, aside from being able to build a culture, convincing guys to buy in, is his game plan. That will still be Sean's authority. Davis Webb will have these plays, and it is up to him to call certain plays in those situations. Now, even though Davis Webb is going to be predominantly calling the plays, Sean Payton's going to have a say in it. He's not just going to be standing on the sideline on Sundays doing nothing. He's still going to give input, and I think this is going to be a little bit of a rocky road to start, Kodiak. They're going to have to figure out some sort of dynamic because it's a dynamic that Sean Payton has never really had to deal with. But that's why I don't think it's a big deal. Sean Payton is still putting together the offense, and it's kind of just up to Davis Webb to call the plays when he sees fit.
Yeah, exactly. And you're completely correct. And the way you could put it is one of my guys on Horsepower, Jeremy, commented on the post that I made today about this. And he said, it's basically Sean Payton's menu, but Davis Webb is going to do all the cooking. And I remember that for a lot of this year, a lot of people wanted Sean Payton to hand over the play calling duties, which I was never one of those people. I thought that was incensed. I thought that was insanely bad. Like, there were legitimate gripes that you could have had about Sean Payton, especially the first half of the year. You know, too many penalties in particular, just late subs or whatever. But initially, the play calling was completely fine. It was just the execution that needed a lot of work. And imagine if we had a good run game and good Bo Nix for the entirety of the year. Imagine how dangerous we could have been if that were the case. But no, if Sean Payton went to the podium today and he basically clarified that this was less about him and more about Davis Webb. Okay. It's been 20 years since Sean Payton got hired by the New Orleans Saints after the hurricane. And there have been only a handful of games where he has not been the primary play caller, and pretty much all of them have been in the preseason. You know, he gave Lombardi his shot last year against the Saints. He gave Davis Webb his shot last year against the Arizona Cardinals. And I just remember how dominant Stidham and Sherfield looked against the Arizona Cardinals backups. So I think as Sean Payton ages, he is going to lean into more of this CEO style head coach. And you know what? If that's what he wants to do, he has earned the right to do so. Okay. We were the New York Jets before this guy took over. Like, make no mistake about it. We were in the dumpster of the NFL. But as Sean Payton ages, he's going to need to rely on more of his staff. And when you have Davis Webb, when you have Vance Joseph, when you have Darren Rizzi, all three of those guys can just be themselves, and Sean Payton can just be, you know, the CEO type head coach, which honestly, it's how most successful college programs run. So, you know what? I'm interested to see how Sean Payton does without being the sole play caller of the offense. That being said, it's still going to be his menu, but you're right. You're right on a lot of these things, Mario.
And that's the thing, man. Like you said it perfectly. He needs to have basically this administrative role. Like he's going to have his hands in everything. And when he said that it's more about Davis Webb, we all knew that, right? Davis Webb was getting head coaching interviews. Now, would he have been hired? Slim to zero chance. But the fact that he was in the interview cycle, like I want everybody to understand how incredibly difficult and rare it is for a coach to be offered. I mean, throughout the NFL, it's like if you have 32 teams, that's 64 offensive and defensive coordinators, plus 32. What is that? 90 something, 94. Am I doing the math correct? Something 96.
96.
Yeah, math is hard. Addition is hard. Play calling is hard. So that's 96 different guys that you kind of have to consider for head coaching gigs, plus you know what Davis Webb is as the quarterback's coach and any other administrative roles. You're starting to talk about like hundreds and hundreds of candidates. Start talking about people in college. So the fact that Davis Webb was getting consideration to even come in for an interview to be a head coach at his age tells you everything that you need to know about him. And respect my cousin said scapegoat. And we're talking about Lombardi. And the reason that Lombardi was a scapegoat is because he was an offensive coordinator that didn't do anything. So, yeah, he was a scapegoat. And honestly, Mikey, you're right. Sean Payton literally brought him in as the scapegoat. He got to defer all of the blame onto Lombardi, rightfully or not. But I will tell you that it was a common theme amongst the people that I talked to inside that locker room that said they didn't really know what Lombardi's role was. They didn't really know what he did. So clearly, Davis Webb was infinitely more important than Lombardi in this situation. And I know he already got a job, but there was a reason that Davis Webb was being interviewed to be a head coach, and Lombardi got fired. Again, he got a job right away. He's got the pedigree. He's got friends in the right places. He was under Sean Payton. People think that that's worth something, and maybe it is. But it stands to reason that Davis Webb is kind of the thing that ties everything together. Now, as we're talking about the regular season, it wasn't the play calling itself that was bad. And I'm going to give the people example, Kodiak, and you can agree or disagree and tell me what you think. The play that everybody harkens back to is the 4th and 1 against the Patriots. Pat and I broke down that play really in real time. Like the first time that we saw the all 22, the wide shot, and we broke it down as we saw it. And what we noticed in that play, the play call itself was great. It was a good play call. The reason that play didn't work, A, the Patriots played it well, and B, there were two, not one, but two blown blocking assignments on that offensive line. If that's a Sean Payton issue, then okay, that's part of the play call that was bad. But it stands to reason that if Bo Nix is in that situation, he understands the correct protection to call. And if he sees something that he doesn't like, then he can audible out of it. That's something that falls off with Jarrett Stidham. So when it comes to that play and people saying, oh, well, he should have just kicked the field goal, that's neither here nor there. because he was getting criticized for the play call. And the thing is, if the offensive line had done their jobs, or if Jared Stidham had called out the correct protection, that play works. Maybe they go on to score a touchdown, and we're talking about the Broncos appearing in the Super Bowl. So there's so much more that meets the eye when you're looking at offensive play calling. So really what it comes down to, and the point that I'm trying to make, the overarching point, is that the play calling was not the problem. A lot of the issues during the season, they were execution and there were personnel issues. Too many personnel changes, and you're taking too long to take guys off the field. And then the defense gets a chance to take their guys and switch guys on and off the field. And then by the time that your guys are actually set and the defense is ready and the official gets out of the way of the snap, that's why you would see an official hovering over the football 3-4 seconds left on the play clock. That wasn't a matter of the defense taking too long to substitute. That's a matter of Sean Payton taking too long in these personnel changes and also not getting the play in on time. So that's why it's so important to point out the fact that, yes, that is Sean Payton's menu. Every single play that is in that playbook that could conceivably be called on a Sunday, that is coming from Sean Payton. He's entrusting Davis Webb to not overthink things, to get the play in sooner, and to not mess around with the personnel so much. And so that's what I want people to understand, Kodiak, and then I'll get your opinion on this too. The play calling itself was not the problem. A lot of it was execution, and honestly, the reason that the execution, in my opinion, was off a lot of the time is because you're rushing and you're scrambling to get the play off because everything has taken so long to get to that point where you're snapping it with less than 2 seconds left on the snap clock, on the play clock.
Yeah, so basically, I've kind of gone back to this through a lot of this season. Like the day after we played the New England Patriots, basically, I was just reflecting on this offense, and I think a lot of this can just be cracked up to the fact that there was way too much on Sean Payton's plate. I just think that's what you do. That's just what happened, especially when your offensive coordinator didn't do anything. And you know what? You still had a young quarterback. You still had a second-year quarterback who wasn't perfect. First half of the year, you guys saw that in a lot of examples. Thursday night games, they tend to be a mess. Whenever under the Sean Payton regime, they always have. First half of the year also was just, if we didn't have J.K. Dobbins, I don't even want to think what our offense could have looked like. Yeah, there were times where I could have, pointed to certain plays and, the Sean Payton should give up play calling to Davis Webb people. Really, I mean, I guess they got their wins here and there, like the screen against the Giants on 4th and goal. Yeah, that was ridiculous. The backwards pass to Sutton against the Raiders on Thursday Night Football on 3rd and 1. Yeah, I guess that was ridiculous. But at the end of the day, like, Bo Nix was literally the least accurate quarterback in the league from 10 to 19 yards in the first half of the season. So it's hard to call plays when your young quarterback basically is not hitting the guys, and everything that you throw has a 50% chance of being dead on arrival. That being said, second half of the year, my goodness, did Bo Nix explode in a big way. And you know what? I think Sean Payton was like, all right, enough of this, a lot of this nonsense that we're doing. He was able to make it work, and he was able to, do a lot of it with a lot of the, personnel issues that we've had. Jalil and Bidet, oh my goodness. I don't even know what to think about those guys going forward. Troutman, Kroll, Adkins, please, please, please get off my team. But the fact that
let me stop you real quick, Kodiak, because this is a Nate Adkins friendly podcast. Okay. Coach Pat and I, big Nate Adkins fans. We feel like when he's healthy, and let me clarify, okay? That we feel the way that we feel about Nate Adkins is like how Pat feels about fullback. We're not saying that the fullback needs to play every single play, okay? We're not saying that Nate Adkins needs to be playing 60 or 70% of the snaps, or really even 40 or 50%. And like Frankie pointed out, yeah, we do not stand on Adkins slander here. We stand on Lucas Kroll slander. That is acceptable. On Tyler Bidet slander, on Jaleel McLaughlin slander, that is fine. But we will not tolerate Nate Adkins slander. Please continue.
Oh, wait. Just wait until I have to say what I have to do about Lil Jordan Humphrey, man. We'll talk about
the show.
Yeah, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about him.
We're gonna start calling it the Lil Jordan Humphrey Power Hour. We're going to change the name of the show here pretty soon.
Oh yeah, but either way, man, Nate Adkins. I mean, by all accounts, he does some nice things on the field, but he vapes root beer vape. So I don't. That's why I don't stand for any Nate Adkins truthers or whatever. Either way,
that's fair.
Yeah, okay, but either way, I just think we need to upgrade at a lot of these skill positions. too much Adam Troutman, too many non-factors. But what I was trying to get at was, you saw it second half of the year, we're able to go absolutely berserk, even with, a lot of non-factors being deployed on the offensive side of the ball. And Sean Payton would always go to the podium and be like, well, it was game plan specific. Okay. So it was game plan specific that Marvin Mims, when he first got his opportunity after Franklin and Bryant went down, all he did against the Buffalo Bills was come up big. Okay. Was it game plan specific to have Adam Troutman get 56% of your offensive snaps this year? Meanwhile, Evan Ingram, the guy that you made a big deal of going out and getting, only got 40% of the offensive snaps this year. That's only with one missed game. So, yeah, overall, there were just a lot of wacky things with the personnel, and Sean Payton knows it. He is a master at self-scouting. And yes, this is a true stat. Nate Adkins did drop 3 of his 11 targets this past season. And yeah, I agree that I don't have any stats to back up that he has hit the most root beer vape on the team, but we can infer it based on what, I don't know, we've heard amongst our friends.
So based on this is all about sample size. Okay. It's his 27% drop rate is really bad, but then you consider the fact that he had 11 targets, and it's okay, well, maybe on a broader sample size, that number, it's a law of averages. That number tends to come down. Just he probably has consumed about 900 plus more percent of root beer vapes than anybody else on the team. But based on our sample size, it's because, to our knowledge, nobody else sips root beer vapes. And perhaps with a larger sample size, law of averages says that number comes down. I'm glad that you brought up the weapons and what they are working with, because what we're going to do now, unless really quick, actually, before I kick it, is there anything else anything else you want to input about the Sean Payton situation, about Davis Webb? Final thoughts? Feel like we covered pretty much everything?
Yeah, I feel like we've covered pretty much everything. It is going to be in Sean we trust, okay? He has earned the right to do this if he wants to do this. And once again, he didn't lose confidence in his ability to call plays. But once again, he is also a master of self-scouting. He understands when things aren't working. And operationally, for a lot of the year with the late subs, the penalties, and just the inconsistency of the offense, the basement floors, but the sky-high ceiling highs, a lot of it was pretty wishy-washy. So I respect the fact that he has the stones to be like, you know what? Davis Webb, here you go. And everyone wants to talk about his ego. I don't want to hear a single thing about his ego after firing his best friend and handing over play calling for the first time in 20 years of being hired as an NFL head coach.
Here's the thing, Kodiak. You have to have an ego, not only to coach in the NFL, but to play in the NFL, to do anything. The only thing NFL related that you don't need an ego for, that people have an excess of, are the people that talk about the NFL, the people that talk about sports. It's you don't need an ego. You don't need to go on and on about how you think that you're great, because what you do is talk about what grown men do for a living. That's what you do. So why don't we deflate the ego a little bit and worry more about the people who are actually doing things, because if it wasn't for them, you would be put out. Sorry for the little rant there. Anyway, when it comes to ego, you have to have an ego. Do you think that Bo Nix goes out there, he's like, oh, I think I'm pretty good? No, Bo Nix thinks that he's the best quarterback in the NFL. When Mahomes was on his run, which is over now, by the way, but when Mahomes was on his run, we don't think that he was wildly egotistical. You don't think that Joe Burrow is wildly egotistical. You want your players, you want your coaches, the people in these positions to have an ego, but it has to be balanced with a heavy sense of self-awareness. And that's something that I have tried to master. My ego is out of control, considering that I do a 1-hour show once a week where I pretend to know what I'm talking about with the Broncos, but I have a shocking sense of self-awareness where I am fully aware that what I do doesn't really matter. And it's just for fun. Anyway, let's move on. We are going to get to a really incredible segment. We tried to segue. Segues are weird. We got interrupted, but we're back on track. As it pertains to the weapons on this team, Kodiak, free agency is on the horizon, and so we are going to take a look at this roster. I'm gonna let you hand out some grades based on the different position groups, and then we are going to find ways to fill those holes. That ad brought to you by Render Forest. I don't get money from them. I just refuse to pay the $3.99 that it would take to remove the Render Forest logo. And as you can see, it's brought to you by the Mile High Meatheads. And so, Kodiak, you are an honorary Mile High Meathead tonight. Did you know that people think that meathead is actually an insult? Anytime that anyone's ever called me a meathead, that's damn near the nicest thing that you can say about me, and I appreciate that. Let's start with the running back position, something that you've already hearkened to. It's up in the air what they're going to do with J.K. Dobbins. I think Bidet is some sort of, is he a free agent or is he a restricted free agent? Something along those lines. I think McLaughlin is a restricted free agent or exclusive rights or something along those lines. Basically, the running backs on the roster right now, to my knowledge, like definitively on the roster, are R.J. Harvey, Cody Schrader, however you say it, and diminutive Deuce Vaughn. So I'm going to say, first of all, go ahead and give on the season as a whole, and you can answer this however you want, give that running back room a grade, and then talk us through some of the free agents that you are targeting to fill that hole.
Absolutely. And before I begin, I just want to say, if you're not a meathead, are you a seafood head? I don't know. But either way, also, this running back grade is sponsored by Burt's Bees, and they don't sponsor me, just like Render Forest doesn't sponsor you, but I wish they would. So, talking about the running back position as a whole this year, I mean, I give it a C+, and that's with J.K. Dobbins being one of the best running backs in football in the first half of the season, okay? Unfortunately, he got hurt. He got hurt on a dirty play, and the injury that we all knew was coming, unfortunately, was just not his fault. Feel terrible that the season had to end the way that it did. But yeah, I give the running backs a C+, and honestly, I might be feeling a little generous. R.J. Harvey was a phenomenal playmaker. R.J. Harvey was a phenomenal red zone player. Unfortunately, he just did not capture the backfield when he had the chance to do so. And you know what? We didn't take him to be the lead back. That's okay. I would have liked him to have shown a little bit more, especially because he was an older rookie that the Broncos drafted. But ultimately, he is still a little raw. But he also does have very little tread on his tires. So I think he will age well as far as the position. But Jalil and Bidet, goodness gracious. No, we need to upgrade. We really need to upgrade that RB3, RB4 spot. We need to get serious, okay? I cannot believe that this team last season went into the free agency and draft cycles only coming out with R.J. Harvey, meaning if J.K. Dobbins wasn't available in June, what would this RB room have looked like? What would this offense have looked like for pretty much the entire part of the year? Joel McLaughlin, 3 years in a row where he has just not captured the backfield. I don't know, man. He runs well on like the 7 to 8 plays a game that he gets, but ultimately, I just feel like it's just too few and far between from him. He's a far cry from what he was at the beginning of his rookie year. First 5 games of his rookie year, I was like, wow, that juice is a little different. Then he did absolutely nothing. Tyler Bidet, get off my team. If you're going to be here to pass block and pick up screens on 3rd and long, let's make sure we actually catch those screens. Okay. What did you think about our RB3, RB4s going throughout the year? Okay. Obviously, it was unfortunate that J.K. Dobbins went down in the way that he did. But what did you think about Jalil and Bidet, Mario?
And they're guys to me, right? Like Jalil had a couple plays where he popped. Bidet had a couple plays where he popped. And like Mikey just said, I'm bringing this up again. And he went on to say, unserious organization. You're hilarious, man. We went into the draft, and this is 100% factual. We went into the draft with Jalil as RB1 and Estime as RB2. That's facts. Because then they drafted R.J. Harvey, and then after the draft, they kind of lucked into J.K. Dobbins, who was available. Why? Because he had a checkered past when it came to injuries. Here was my biggest problem, Kodiak. You knew, based on everything that you've seen in the NFL in the past 5-6 years, however long J.K. Dobbins has been in the league, he has an expiration date. He does not play the entire season. When he plays and when he's on the field and when he's healthy, he is fantastic. And I'm not even going to label him injury prone because as somebody that like works on players and works in this field, I hate that term, especially like you just mentioned, like how Dobbins got hurt, dirty play, total freak accident, not at all his fault, but it still happened. It's a shame, but it was an inevitability. That was my biggest problem with this running back room is you did not have a contingency plan and you should have known how this was going to go down. And here's the thing that, like, I'm not upset that they didn't address running back in free agency last year. I think it was like Aaron Jones was kind of like the big name guy. No, thank you. I'm like,
Najee Harris.
yeah, Najee Harris, who's like a guy, he's fine. Maybe would have been okay in this offense. I was fine that they didn't address it in free agency. But the fact that they only drafted RJ Harvey, who, as you said, is a really good running back. He is a situational guy. He is a good role player. He is not the bell cow that they ended up getting out of J.K. Dobbins. So the fact that they did not draft an additional running back or even bring in like a formidable running back as an undrafted free agent, that really bothered me. And again, I go back to what Mikey said earlier. It's like McLaughlin and Estime were RB 1 and 2 before the draft. That was horrible. And they proceeded to take an undersized running back who they probably overdrafted. And that's not a slight on RJ Harvey. That's basing, where all the other 31 teams had him slated. And then you again lucked into J.K. Dobbins. So you're asking me about Bidet. You're asking me about McLaughlin. I don't think that they need to have a role on this team. And I'll tell you why. This running back free agency class is really, really, really good. Now, I know the Jets have said that they plan on franchise tagging Breece Hall, which I'm fine with. I like Breece Hall as a running back. I think he's really good. I think he would fit this system. I don't think that as a Broncos fan, I would be prepared to commit $13, $14, $15 million to him per year or whatever he might command. If you could convince Breece Hall to come here for 8 or 9 a year, then I can maybe be talked into it. But it's one of those positions that it's like, unless you're getting a thoroughbred stud, a Bijan Robinson, a Jahmyr Gibbs, a Christian McCaffrey, a player of that caliber, you're not overpaying for a running back. That's just the world of the NFL that we live in. Kenneth Walker is kind of the same way. I think Kenneth Walker is fine. I think there's a lot of recency bias when it comes to Kenneth Walker, who had a split backfield, who never scored any touchdowns because Zach Charbonnet did pretty much all of that. He was, some days 1A, some days 1B in that Seattle offense. I don't necessarily see him as a bell cow either. And again, if you could convince him to come for like $4 or $5 million less per year than his market value, then bring on Kenneth Walker. I'd be fine with that. But it's not realistic. So as we go further down this list, like a couple other people that I've seen linked to the Broncos, David Montgomery, I would enjoy that. Rico Dowdle, I don't know, man. I just can't get there with Dowdle. I feel like he's going to be a little bit more expensive than he's worth, and he's 28 years old. Like, I think this room needs to get younger because RJ Harvey was a 25-year-old rookie. And anybody that has ever followed me on anything knows that I am pounding the table for Tyler Algier. I pounded the table for him last year, Kodiak. I said, they don't need him. They have Bijan Robinson. He's the best running back in the entire NFL. Trade for Tyler Algier. Give up a 6th-round pick. Get a 7th-round back. Give up a 5th-round pick. Get a 6th-round back. Whatever it takes. Now they don't have to trade anything for him because he's a free agent. I would go a little above his market value, which the valuation I'm seeing is about $3.5 mil per year. I would give him 4 or 5 a year for 4 years. He's the same age as RJ Harvey, and he's already due for his 2nd contract. And anybody that needs a refresher on Tyler Algier, stud running back coming out of BYU, I absolutely loved him. Ran for 1,000 yards his rookie year on a really, really bad Atlanta Falcons team, who I think was quarterbacked by Desmond Ridder.
And Mariota. And Mariota,
when Mariota's career was pretty much over and he was just a career backup at that point. Then they draft Bijan Robinson the next year. And of course, like, he's not as good as Bijan Robinson. Why? Because nobody is. There's no running back better than Bijan Robinson. So, of course, he's going to get all of the touches. I think that you can get Tyler Algier for cheap. I would easily sign him to a minimum 3-year contract, and he is going to be very affordable. And I think that he would outperform his market value if you bring him in. So that's who I'm rocking with. Give me a name that you like.
I mean, you talked about Breece Hall, and listen, I still think I'm going to push back a little bit based on what you had to say about Breece Hall, about how you don't want, 13, 14, $15 million a year. That's around what Darnell Mooney makes right now, all right? So if you're bringing in a guy like Breece Hall, you got to realize that free agent running backs are honestly still the best bang for your buck, All right. You see what
Yeah,
these
that's true.
free agent wide receivers get every single year. And honestly, a lot of the time it's like, a little perplexing. Darius Slayton, he's somebody who I really liked last offseason. He got like 3 for 36 or 3 for 39 from the New York Giants. And honestly, that's no different from what Saquon got a few years ago.
That's true. That's true.
Now listen, a guy like Saquon, I don't want to go there necessarily, but I feel like, you add a playmaker like Breece Hall, who's totaled 5,000 yards on the New York Jets over the past 4 years, missing half his rookie season due to an ACL tear. Honestly, I feel like he's a Hall of Fame talent just based on the fact of how productive he's been on the New York Jets, second worst scoring team since 2022. But you know what? I've got a little something just for you, Mario, just for the people. So I used to have an NFL channel called Kodiak NFL. That's how I got my start here. And Tyler Algier is my favorite.
Tyler Algier is my favorite. Oh my gosh, favorite running back in the draft. I love that so much.
That was posted February 9th, 2022. Okay. I've been on this guy since he carried Zach Wilson to getting drafted second overall by the Jets. All right. I've been on this guy ever since he was a Walmart cashier, paying for his trying to earn his way onto a scholarship. And then he finally got the chance to do that. And he has broken out in a huge way. And the point I've made about is I don't care, whether it's free agency or the draft, whoever the Broncos need to bring in needs to pop with their carries, because honestly, there's not going to be a lot. If we're going to throw the ball 50 times a game and hand it off like 15, then we need guys who can make the most out of their opportunities. Tyler Algier did that, man. He came in pretty much in mop-up duty for Bijan Robinson, and he still got 8 touchdowns. He was a short yardage specialist, and this guy moves very, very well, okay? It's not like Esme, where he's coming in the league like 230, and then you see him in the first preseason game, and you're just like, oh, looks like he's kind of running a Smet. No. We have data. We have historical examples of this guy playing at a high level. And honestly, I feel like he's just had the unfortunate responsibility of being behind the league's best running back. And it's unfortunate for him, but now he has the chance to test the open market.
Just so everybody knows, one of the reasons that I like Tyler Algier so much, he runs through people. He runs behind his pads. He's a one cut and go guy. Very rarely gets taken down by arm tackles. 5'10", 225. And if there is something that this running back room desperately needs, Kodiak, it is size and power coupled with a little bit of juice. And I want to point this out too, like, as I've been pushing my Tyler Algier agenda to the moon, especially on Twitter, people have pointed out to me like, well, what about his yards per carry? He doesn't have good yards per carry. That's because they used him as a short yardage back. They would put him in at the goal line. They would put him in at 3rd and 1, 2nd and 1 short situations, run him straight up the middle, situations that Bijan would be fine, but you're trying to preserve him because, again, he's the best running back in the NFL. So you're giving the dirty work to a Tyler Algier. So don't be a box score scouter, and instead watch the actual games. Go to, if you're going to be lazy, go to YouTube. Just pull up Tyler Algier highlights. Watch some of the highlights that they put together of this guy and tell me that he wouldn't be perfect in this offense. And then harkening back to what you're saying about Breece Hall, that was more for copium, if I'm being honest. I'm trying to talk myself out of it now, Kodiak, because the Jets are going to jet. He clearly wants out of there. He clearly hates it in New York. He desperately needs a change of scenery. And they're going to say, you know what? We're just going to franchise tag him. We could probably do this for another player that, maybe we need a little bit more. But no, we're going to keep this guy miserable and force him to continue to play with the Jets. So a little bit of copium there. I would be all on board with Breece Hall. I want you to give me a couple of other names so we know the big ones. But is there anybody else, maybe even like a dark horse running back in free agency that you would at least like to see the Broncos take a run at?
Absolutely. Rachaad White is somebody who's really kind of reinvented his game over the past few years. I remember when he first came out of ASU, he was one of those guys who was really inefficient as a runner, but really good as a receiver. Well, he's kind of had to reinvent his game. He's kind of had to, with Bucky Irving kind of breaking out, and Sean Tucker also having a slight emergence there in the Tampa Bay backfield. You kind of had to reinvent your game, and he was very productive, on the ground. He basically lost that 3rd down role, and he eventually ended up becoming, honestly, one of the most efficient, just pure running backs in the NFL. One guy who I was surprised when I was looking at like a lot of the advanced stats, as far as, tackle breaking. Remember when we played against the Commanders on Sunday Night Football this year? Chris Rodriguez, man, I don't
Hey,
understand
that was
how.
mine. Yep.
Yeah, I don't understand how he had the game that he did against us, but then I looked at all the other games he did this year, and I'm just like, wow, he didn't just do that to us. He did that against everyone. And I remember coming out of
He's a
Kentucky.
wrecking ball.
Yeah, coming out of Kentucky, I was like, whatever. This dude's just a worse version of Benny Snell. I was like, all right, another Kentucky running back that just won't amount to anything.
I liked him coming out. I went on to the LTV podcast, and there's something about it, man. I like big running backs who can move. I didn't like Audric Estime because he was incredibly slow and had no wiggle. And I love Chris Rodriguez. So I'm like, I like big dudes that can run. It's the reason that I'm infatuated with Mike Washington Jr. out of Arkansas this year. I just like big, meaty running backs. As Mike succinctly puts it, with junk in their trunk. Mike's a big butt guy. Just like me, like that's predominantly my job. Okay. I look at and touch butts all day, every day, pretty much. It's the majority of what I do. You need to get big dudes with big butts. Why? Because that's where the power comes from. So I'm so glad that you brought up Chris Rodriguez, because that was going to be like my ace in the hole. And I think is he a restricted free agent, or I think the Commanders can tender him or something like that.
I don't
I doubt that they're going to put a second round tender on him. But I guess we'll see. The contract shit is like, if you're not an unrestricted free agent, I don't know what the fuck it is. I'm going to be perfectly honest. I know that there's one thing called exclusive rights free agent. I know that there's something called a restricted free agent. That's nerd shit. I don't have time to learn that. Just go get him. They don't care what it takes. Just go get him. Go bring him in. Before we move on from this, I feel like the elephant in the room here is, what do we do with J.K. Dobbins? Because here's the thing, man. I love J.K. I really do. Like, he was fantastic for us. Great in interviews. Genuinely a really good person. I know a lot of people in the media who did interviews with him said he was always fantastic, always said the right things at his end of the year interview where he said he felt like a Bronco for life, even though he's played, what did he play? 9-10 games as a Denver Bronco. I love that. And here's the thing. I'm all for bringing him back if you really, really, really limit his salary, Kodiak, and you make it almost entirely incentive-based. Okay, if you hit X amount of carries, you get a bonus. If you score X amount of touchdowns, you get a bonus. X amount of yards, you get a bonus. He has to hit all of these benchmarks. The most paramount for me would be like, say that he has to play 14 games. Out of the 17, if he hits 14 games, $2 million bonus right there. That's the only way that, like, I would be okay with them bringing JK back. Or tell JK to put his money where his mouth is. You feel like you're a Bronco for life? Great. Here's another one-year prove-it deal on vet minimum. Show us and prove to us how much you really want to be a Bronco. What do you think about the J.K. Dobbins situation?
Well, you can bring him back, but he cannot be a part. He can be a part of the solution. He can't be the solution. Okay. You can't just be like, okay, we're really excited about what RJ Harvey is going to do in year 2. He's going to, ascend, and J.K. Dobbins is just going to, be the sole guy that we're going to rely on again, because you did that this past year and it didn't work out ultimately. Okay. Those guys, J.K. Dobbins was really good when he was healthy, but once again, all right. And my boy Marquis Sports brought this up last night. How would you feel about us going full Vegas Golden Knights? And we immediately signed J.K. Dobbins to a contract, but we immediately put him on IR. Okay.
That's what I said.
Whenever we need him, he's there. Whenever he's there, we need him. And honestly, I'm not opposed to keeping him on the shelf next year. I'm really not.
Dude, 100%. You start him on the pup list. I said this a couple of weeks ago because there were a bunch of people in the chat, and it was shortly after his. Marky and I, we're Italian, so we share that part of our brain where we're really smart, like smarter than most people, and like really ahead of the curve. Yeah, after he had done his interview, and everybody in the chat was clamoring like, "We got to bring JK back. We got to bring JK back." I'm like, you know what? Put him on short-term IR. Don't start him until week 10, because then you're getting week 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, unless there's a bye. So that's 8 or 9 games right there. That's pretty much what you're getting out of him anyway, right? So if that's the case, and yeah, you pull a Vegas Knights and you kind of manipulate the health situation a little bit, and you get JK to sign off on it, which I don't know why he wouldn't. You're not getting paid any less. Give him a certain amount of guaranteed money and just be like, oh, you hamstring is feeling a little tight, right? Yeah, go hit the cold tub and we'll talk to you in week 10. Yeah, I'm absolutely for that. Speaking of Marky, he wanted to point out that your outfit was better than mine, and yeah, I can't argue with that. I wanted to go with something a little bit basic, but also something that really kind of showed what everybody is working with and who they are watching right now. And I just want everyone to be aware of what y'all are dealing with. But thanks for watching, Marky. I sure do love you a lot. Let's play football again real soon. Oh, never mind. He's Lebanese. Forget it. You're dead to me, Marky. Appreciate. We had some good times. Had a good run. Sayonara. I think sayonara is Lebanese, right? Anyway, any other running backs that you would want the Broncos to consider? Any other names you want to throw out before we go to the next position?
Not necessarily. I think we've touched on basically all of them, especially because, free agency, it's it's a deep class this year. So I feel like it would be a huge missed opportunity not getting any of those names that we discussed.
100%. Let's move on to another position that you discussed, and you rattle off every name that you did not like, and it was pretty much the entire room, and that is the tight end position. So first of all, Kodiak, give me a grade for that entire room, and then tell me what this team is going to do with Evan Ingram.
Okay, if you're asking me a grade for the entire tight end room this past year, first of all, this is sponsored by Pellegrino. Okay, I'm always sipping this in my live streams, and also I brought this to my first flag football session with Mario. So they don't sponsor me, but once again, I wish they would. Straight up, I give them a D minus, and the reason it's not an F is because the Evan Ingram play in overtime against the Washington Commanders. The most frustrating thing to me
Single
about
play save them from an F.
yeah, literally. But the most
Whatever it takes.
the most frustrating thing about the tight end room to me is that I feel like our guys that were there for a specific purpose weren't actually good at their design purpose. Okay. And Evan Ingram, I think a lot of that was honestly, you could chalk it up to usage because of the fact that whenever he got his chance, he looked pretty dang dynamic with the ball in his hands. But Troutman, get off my team. Troutman, 56% of the inline snaps. I thought, honestly, until midway through the year, until we cut Sherfield, I thought that Troutman was having the second worst year of anybody in the team. And once they traded Sherfield, I thought Troutman had the worst season of anybody on the team. But also, the thing that pissed me off about Troutman was he was brought in to be a blocking tight end. And I saw like the blown block tight end leaderboard that was put out on Twitter today. And Troutman was like number 4. Okay. Troutman was like 4th worst in the league as far as blown block percentage. So you brought him in to be a blocking tight end, and he wasn't even good at that. So, like, what does he do? Kroll? Oh, my goodness. What do you even do? You're a receiving tight end who can't catch passes. I can at least remember a few good things that Troutman and Adkins did on third down or in the red zone. Kroll, I don't think a single pass in his career. I was looking at it a couple weeks ago. I don't think he's caught a single pass in his career on third down or for a touchdown, besides that one he had in the preseason where the 49ers just forgot about him. Okay, so move on from him. Mercedes Lewis, once again, you brought him in to be a guy, but I think we can, get younger. I don't think that's a surprise for anybody to say.
I don't think you could get any older, my guy. The total aggregate age of not just that room, but the team as a whole is going to drop by like 2.5 years when Mercedes Lewis is officially off the roster. Just him.
Yeah, and I do just want to say this about Root Beer, okay? I think he's fine, but I do think we can upgrade the H-back position. Now, will they?
That's fair.
I'm not entirely sure. Will they? I'm not entirely sure, but there are a few targets that I really like on day 3 that I'm sure I'll have plenty of time to talk about. in March.
You know what? If it's an H-back you're looking for, there's a guy down in New Orleans who Sean Payton is he's a very big fan of. And I don't think, and this isn't me necessarily saying that I think it's a good idea, Kodiak, but I think that there is a pretty decent chance that said individual who plays about 5 different positions on the football field for the New Orleans Saints, who was signed to a huge extension for what he was able to do by our very own Sean Payton. I think there's a good chance that certain individual ends up on our team.
You know
If
what?
you really want an H back that bad.
You know what? I would be all for it. You know why I'd be all for it? Because Sean Payton has his guys, and I pretty much can't stand all of them. But the one that would be a lot of fun, oh my goodness, taste God, Mormon Mahomes, that would be so much fun in this offense. He would have got
Anybody who's living in go ahead.
Yeah, he would have picked up that 4th and 1. You know, if you just handed it to him.
He's moving the ball to get out of his way. In case any of you are living under a rock, we're talking about Taysom Hill. And like I said, man, like he's a fun player. Maybe the most infuriating fantasy player of all time because like before this injury, he's a guy that is on 100% of rosters. And it's like sometimes he'll throw passes. He's mostly going to run. He'll catch some passes. Like he's a really fun, entertaining football player. Like the dude is just a dog. And he'll have between 2 and 4 monster fantasy games. Like I think it was 2 seasons ago. You know, he's putting up, he's like 4 points here, 6 points there, 5 points there, 8 points there. And he exploded for like 39. Because I think he scored like 3 or 4 rushing touchdowns, or he like threw for a touchdown, ran for 3 more, and just went completely off. Like I don't know what kind of athlete you're getting at his age, and then also like coming off of the injury that he had. But yeah, Mikey, exactly. Like on a vet minimum, why not? Why not? And then you don't have to worry about, you know, bringing in like an emergency quarterback because he's technically the emergency quarterback. You know that he's going to be great for the room. This is going to be the BYU offseason, right? We're gonna add Taysom Hill and we're gonna add Tyler Algier, and we are going to bring the Mormon faith back into the Broncos locker room so that Garrett Bowles is no longer alone in that aspect. And yes, David, you are late, but you are just in time for me to mention A.T. Perry. Kodiak was just talking about how he hates all of Sean Payton's guys. And I think, was A.T. Perry a Sean Payton guy? I
No,
think it's
in New Orleans. No, he wasn't, because
he was gone, right?
Yeah, he was gone.
But he still found his way. He still found his way to Sean Payton, regardless. A.T. Perry, you damn legend, man. What could have been, what we could have had would have been so special. The best running gag from any show, and it's all for naught. And you know, a part of me, Kodiak, is sad that I will never buy you, David, and Marky A.T. Perry jerseys. And it's probably like, I'm convinced he still doesn't exist. I know they say that he now plays for the Pittsburgh Steelers, or he's technically on their roster, or was on their practice squad, or whatever. I don't think he exists. I think that he is just a state of mind that was used to bring all of us and, you know, all of our different levels of content together. So for that, A.T. Perry, we are forever grateful. So David, you got here just in time for the real meat and potatoes of the show. So D- for the tight ends. There's a decent little list of free agent tight ends, Kodiak. So who is at the top of your list right now?
Well, listen, you know, I talked about this is going to piss a lot of people off, but man, as far as like the actual true receiving options, I just don't know where to go. I really don't. Like Cade Otton, I feel like he's just a really poor blocker. He was one of the only guys who Troutman had a worse, or who was higher as far as blown blocks than Troutman was. I think Otton was like second worst in the NFL. Plus, his gaffes on film are just monumental. And his plays were, I literally saw a play against the Rams where he had the ball in his hands and he literally just handed it to the Rams defender, and the Rams took it to the house on Sunday Night Football this past year. So I'm not really a huge fan.
Like some water boy shit.
Yeah, exactly. So this is going to make a lot of people mad, but I think I really want them to go out and get Isaiah Likely or Charlie Kohler. The reason I want them to go out and get those certain types of guys is because they can play in line, but you know what you're getting with them, and they're actually good at what you ask them to do. Okay,
I
Charlie
like
Kohler,
Charlie Kolar a lot. That's a great name.
he was literally the best blocking tight end in the NFL
Yeah.
this past season. So with him, once again, there's a lot of guys I can't stand, but the thing that I hate about this tight end room is you bring in a guy for a specific purpose, then they're just not good at said thing. Okay. Albert Okwuegbunam was supposed to be this like game changer with speed and size. He had the size, but not the speed. Fant, you used a first round pick on him. I really like Noah Fant, but he probably wasn't worth the capital that you invested into him, So with this tight end room, we're just in this constant cycle and loop of, okay, we bring in these guys to do a specific thing, and they're just not good at it. Greg Dulcich, supposed to be a receiving tight end, plays like trash the first 2 games of 2024. Then see ya. Now, once again, Lucas Kroll, supposed to be a receiving tight end, and he catches like probably, what's his 17 game pace? Like 17 passes a year, 18 passes a year. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, if that. So
I
either
think
way,
one a game is a little lofty here, Kodiak.
yeah, well, I remember our first target of the season went to Lucas Kroll, and I was like, I spent all the offseason hyping up the Broncos and talking about them on YouTube for that. Either way, no, with Kohler and with guys like Daniel Bellinger is another good one. You know what you're getting, and they're specific role guys for who are good at what you're going to ask them to do. And and if you're going to deploy Troutman out there, okay, he's woefully ineffective as a receiver, but he's also a bad blocker. But with Kohler and with Bellinger, you're getting a good blocker. So that's why I'm in on them. But you know what? As far as like pure receiving threats, it really hurts. And you initially asked me about what do you do with Ingram. You got to keep him. And honestly, the reason you have to keep him is because you made a big deal about going out and getting him, and you would look foolish if you cut him at this point. But also, you just can't really overhaul the tight end room that much. Like you can move on from everybody else. It's like the inside linebacker room. You can move on from everybody else, but you can't move on from Dre Greenlaw. You just can't. You can't remake the room and completely tear it down in one off season. I just don't think that's realistic and what you want to accomplish.
I'm going to list a couple names for you, just kind of rapid fire, and then you just tell me yes, no, or maybe. We'll do that, okay? Chiga Conquo.
No.
David Njoku.
Maybe.
Oh man, I'm sorry. I'm scrolling through here. I ran out of good names real quick, like quicker than I thought. Dallas Goedert.
Maybe.
And K-Dot.
He's just going to get such a big contract. I mean, and once again, I feel like his skill set just overlaps a little too much with Ingram's.
Fair enough. Any last name in the free agency pool for tight ends that you'd want to mention before we move on?
Not really. I've got plenty in the draft, but we'll talk about that at a later date.
Why don't you give me your 3 favorite tight ends in the draft real quick, and just little teaser. I think we're going to do it a couple of weeks before the draft. We will be doing our second annual altitude and fuck. Let me try this again.
Altitude and
a couple of weeks before the draft, we will be doing our second annual altitude adjustment Engage 8 draft special, where we will have pretty much all the same people as last time, except for Frankie, because he ruined the entire stream. Love you, Frankie. Still kind of mad. Anyway, nice little teaser. Just give me 3 tight ends that you love. And I'm not saying like your tight ends 1, 2, and 3. Just like 3 of your guys.
All right. So 3 of my guys. I knew that Mikey was going to come in here with the Delp. I've been pushing back on Delp a lot on Twitter lately, but once again, I already did it earlier today with David and Mark, so I'm not going to do that again. Either way, as far as there are 3 guys I really want to shout out. Number 1 is Justin Joly out of NC State. Okay, big Christmas. Man, you watch him move, you're just like, wow, he's listed at 6'3", 262. I'm just like, holy cow. Like if
he's a large human.
He is a large human, but he moves like a wide receiver. And honestly, I know that they kind of already failed at the F slot hybrid thing, but you know what? It's going to be Davis Webb's offense next year. I mean, it's still going to be Sean's menu, but you know what I'm saying. All right. I feel like there's just a better path to serious utilization for these guys. this upcoming year. So I really like Justin Joliet of NC State. I feel like he's going to absolutely tear it up next week. And as far as like one of my favorite mid-round targets, it is going to be Eli Raritan out of Notre Dame. Okay, if you watch Jadaria Price and you watch Jeremiah Love and you watch Malachi Fields and you're just watching the Notre Dame offense, you're asking yourself, "Wow, who's number 9? Wow, that's a little different. Who's number 9 out there for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish?" And then you look at Eli Raritan and you're just like, "Wow, oh my goodness, this guy's honestly really, really good." He had great production, sharing the field with a lot of NFL caliber athletes. And you know what? He can leak out, he can get yak. And another one of my guys that I want to shout out is, Josh Cuevas from Alabama. He has short arms, 31 and a quarter inch arms. So unfortunately, he's going to cap out at probably a H-back role. But anytime Alabama needed somebody on third down, on fourth down, they pretty much always went to him. Great red zone threat as well, and good yak ability. And honestly, there's a lot of other guys I like Tanner Kojal, Michael Trigg, if we can figure out what in the world happened, throughout his time at Baylor, between transferring between 3 schools and getting kicked off a few teams. But other than that, I think we could take a shot on him. Why not get some dogs on this team?
Fantastic. Let's move over to the linebacker position. So you had already mentioned that you talked a little bit about it. You have to keep Dre Greenlaw. You're not necessarily reworking that whole room. I'm sure you saw George Payton today, and then you saw the collective meltdown from Broncos country saying that, we like Alex Singleton, we like Justin Strnad, we want to bring them back. I'm of the mindset, Kodiak, that it's like, there was this guy that had this saying a long time ago that the definition of insanity was doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And I think that we can confidently say that inside linebacker was probably their biggest weakness on the defensive side of the ball. Singleton is an older free agent. Justin Strnad is a free agent. You got Greenlaw locked into a big contract. Lavelle Bailey had a lot of preseason hype and didn't really see the field. Karene Reed was another guy that it seemed like they really liked, special teamer. Maybe he can grow into a linebacker. First of all, before we get into the grade, how did you feel about George Payton's comments when he's talking about wanting Alex Singleton back, wanting Justin Strnad back? A room that famously the last couple of years has struggled on what's been an elite defense. Are you buying that, or is this just George Payton kind of doing the PR thing?
Well, listen, man, he went to the podium last year and said Javonte was one of the best pass protecting backs in the league, and then proceeded to just not even offer him anything. All right. And George Payton is doing the exact opposite of what the Buffalo Bills did just 2 or 3 weeks ago, when they were just like, you see what happened with our scrubbalicious wide receiver.
Leon Coleman sucks. I don't know who drafted that clown.
Yeah,
that guy did.
Yeah, we're just like, wow. All right. We're throwing our receiver under the bus. No. We can't do any of that. And I know that we meme about, how George Payton is really, really boring during interviews. Like, I didn't even watch what he had to say today because he says a whole lot of nothing whenever he's at the podium. We trust our coaches to develop his skill set. We like what we have. We'll do our due diligence. He uses his hands a lot when he talks too, if you guys have noticed. So maybe he is Italian, just like yourself, Mario. But either way, I'm not buying it. But you know what? I think Mike Kliss, he dropped something that almost made me have a heart attack when he said that Alex Singleton was going to be in line for a significant raise this upcoming offseason from $6 million a year. And I tweeted that out, and the way people were reacting, you would have thought pitchforks were going to come out at Dove Valley that night.
I don't know if I've seen Alex Singleton has to be the most polarizing Bronco player since Tim Tebow. I mean, you have people on completely different ends of the spectrum when it comes to Alex Singleton. You have people that will go to war for him, that will vehemently defend him, that would make him the godfather of their children. And then there were people who would want to load him into a cannon and fire him into the sun. And there's almost nobody in the middle. There's almost nobody that's like, yeah, he's good. He's not great. He's not bad. He's good. He's pretty good. You don't see that. People either love him like a son or they hate him like a stepfather. And there's no in between. How are we feeling about this whole situation?
Well, listen, I also just got something for you to reveal. Listen, I don't like him. I don't want to re-sign him, but I love the season that he had. I thought it was very inspiring. So there you go. Up in my backdrop right now, boom, new edition. Okay. And yes, I did get an Alex Singleton jersey after crapping on him relentlessly for the past 2 or 3 years, just because I loved, I love the energy he plays with, but he cannot be the solution going forward. He just can't. Okay. And, like you said, you have guys on both sides of the equation, but I promise you guys, look at me when I say this. I'm going to take my glasses off for this. I promise you, Broncos coaching staff, George Payton, Sean Payton. All right, guys, look at me when I say this. You talk about all this talk about how Alex Singleton knows the defense, how he gets everybody aligned. I promise you, he is not the only linebacker on this planet, whether it's free agency or the draft. I promise you, he is not the only linebacker who can communicate well. He is not the only linebacker who can call the defense. He's not the only linebacker that can wear the green dot. And he is not the only linebacker that can be a good guy and be a kind person off the field. He is not the only linebacker on earth that can do that. But the way, some of these other shows talk about Alex Singleton, you would have thought that if aliens came down to earth, they would have thought he was Ray Lewis based on some of the hype that goes around. What do you guys think?
Some people that think that Alex Singleton could cure cancer instead of having suffered from cancer. And you're right. It's a fantastic story. I love Alex Singleton as a player. I do genuinely might have to get his jersey. Actually, I see your Palczewski jersey. I think that might need to be the next purchase. Absolutely inspirational. Like what Alex Singleton was able to overcome, and he came off of a torn ACL the year before. And when he tore his ACL in Tampa Bay 2 seasons ago, played the rest of the game like dog. Okay, I get the value. I do. I really like him as a player. But we are talking about a team that is on the precipice of being a Super Bowl contender and a Super Bowl champion. They were a Bo Nix injury away. They were losing their starting quarterback away from going to the Super Bowl in the second year of a rebuild. So what we do now, the whole reason that we're having this whole show is to nitpick. Are there teams out there that wish they had the Broncos running back room from last year? Yeah. Are there teams that wish they had the Broncos tight end room from last year? Yeah. Are there teams that wish they had the Broncos linebacker room from last year? Yes. This is the thing. Now that this team is a legit contender, we're not in purgatory anymore where we're hoping to win 7 games instead of 6 or 8 games instead of 6 and 9 games instead of 5. We have to take it to the next level, the same as this team. So we are going to nitpick about things. Is Alex Singleton a good NFL caliber linebacker? Yes. Can the Broncos do marketably better? Noticeably better? Yes, absolutely. To that end, Kodiak, the way that this is a really deep running back free agency class, this is also a relatively deep linebacker free agency class. So tell me, why don't you give me your big 3 that you really like and put them in some sort of order if you have it. Or you could just list 3 guys we got to get one of these 3 guys.
All right. Well, I think I should start out by saying, guys, I respect Devin Lloyd, but I just do not want another second contract, I should say, on the defensive side of the ball, especially, we can't invest anymore into the defense. We just can't. All right. We're kind of reaching over extrapolation territory. We need to, take where we're strong, and we need to rely on those other guys in our defensive ecosystem to really carry the load. That being said, Lloyd would be great if we did sign him, but he better be out of this world good for the market contract that he's going to get. And unfortunately, we just kind of went in on green law last year, so I don't see it happening. That being said, a couple names I really like. First of all, there's a guy who I'm going to mention that a lot of you probably have never heard of before, and honestly, I hadn't either until he stepped in for the Chicago Bears this past year and looked really good in limited playing time. DeMarco Jackson, he was actually PFF's highest graded coverage linebacker this past year. I have no idea how. I understand it's a limited sample, but once TJ Edwards went down for the Chicago Bears, DeMarco Jackson stepped in, and he used to play for the New Orleans Saints. So you know how Sean feels about his former Saints, even if he wasn't exactly there during their time with the Saints, which DeMarco Jackson did not overlap with Sean Payton. But either way, he's somebody that interests me as like a budget, go out, see what you got, this guy sort of thing. Second, Devin Bush. All right. A long time ago, there was a chance that he was going to be a Bronco. His name was written on the card, but then Pittsburgh calls, no. We want Devin Bush. The Broncos are just like, okay, we can trade back. We can draft Noah Fant. We can have probably the worst 2019 draft class of any team in the league that year. So we traded back and we avoided selecting Devin Bush. Now, Devin Bush has basically been a non-factor for what he was expected to be on Pittsburgh. That being said, this past year with Cleveland, he was very good. He was very good, and I get it, strong defensive ecosystem. He was next to Schlesinger, and on the front seven, they have Mason Graham. They had the defensive player of the year and Myles Garrett, who broke the sack record. They also had
Shelby Harris. Don't forget our boy Shelby Harris, Kodiak.
Best hands in the league.
Best hands in the league.
But either way, so yes, I get it. Strong defensive ecosystem with Devin Bush right there, but also Leo Chenal, man. Nick Bolton was washed finally at 25 years old, which I'm about to turn 25 in 2 weeks, so maybe I'm washed as well. That being said, Leo Chenal was a guy who I wanted the Broncos to take over Greg Dulcich back in 2022.
Yes. Preach. I was devastated. I loved him coming out. I was devastated, Kodiak. Let me tell you, when he was selected by the Kansas City Chiefs, I loved that dude coming out. And now they have a chance to right their wrongs. I'm so glad you brought him up.
That is very true. And honestly, he is a little pedestrian against the run, but he still has time to develop his skill set, man. I think he's only 25, 26, which that's still pretty
And he's a freak athlete.
Oh, yeah.
Freak athlete.
10 relative athletic score. Let's not forget the worst loss that I think we've suffered in the past few years. It was at the hands of Leo Chenal. It was at the hands of, him making a play. And yes, I understand that things went wrong for us, but at the end of the day, Leo Chenal also just made a play, and that's just the reality of the situation. But either way, I would love
how great would it be? How great would it be to take one of the best defensive players from your current biggest rival and add them? This would have like Neil Smith vibes. I don't know if you were alive back in 1998. Kodiak, maybe you've seen the videos of Neil Smith was a Kansas City Chief legend. And this is how funny he is. And I'm just going to reiterate this really quick. Neil Smith was a Chief, like lifelong Chief, legend in Kansas City. He could not beat John Elway, so he joined him. And this man is so funny. He really came out onto the documentary that they did and said, yeah, man, I went back to Kansas City. Like, I gave him a lot of myself and, I gave him a lot of good years. I thought they would cheer me and they booed me. And he was surprised. And I'm like, you can never go to a divisional rival and expect their fans, their rabid fans, to be like, hey, thanks for the 6 or 7 years that you gave us. It's okay that you went to go play for the team that we hate more than life itself. It's fine. Yeah, but thank you. Like, brother, come on. You cannot be that tone deaf. There was not a single solitary Bronco player in the history of this team that if they went to Kansas City, I'd be like, that's okay, man. Best of luck. Thanks for all the good years. I'd be like, no, fuck you. You're dead to me. Anyway, maybe Leo Chenal could be the next Neil Smith.
Yeah, no.
Different positions, I know, but the concept is the same. Yeah,
exactly. And once again, he still has room to grow. And he played next to Nick Bolton, and he had to mask a lot of the deficiencies because, like I said, Nick Bolton is already washed at 25 years old. So, yeah.
They gave him so much money, Kodiak. Oh, my God. They gave that man, Nick Bolton, so much freaking money.
I know.
It's such a lie. But and here's what I'll tell you, too. If you're unfamiliar with Nick Bolton, the way that we feel about Alex Singleton, like how the majority of Bronco fans feel about Alex Singleton, the Chiefs feel that way about Nick Bolton, except it's exacerbated. And it's the same kind of thing where it's like there are people like Chiefs fans who will relentlessly defend Nick Bolton because he makes plays. He makes a lot of tackles. He makes big hits, and it's fun when he makes plays. But he is a massive liability on their defense. So it's funny the parallels that we're talking about. And you're right. Chenal had to cover up for a lot of the deficiencies. Because like Nick Bolton just kind of goes rogue. He just kind of like does whatever he wants. He's like, I'm going to go over here. You go here, and I'm going to go down. I'm going to do like this. And then they're like, it's not the defense that we called. And so everybody else is trying to like pick up the pieces that Nick Bolton is lying in his wake. That's another reason why I would love Leo Chenal, because then you're taking away Nick Bolton's I don't want to say puppet master, but his control tower.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? Once again, he still has a lot of room to grow. If you put him in the role of Alex Singleton, even if you don't trust him completely, okay, so you don't trust him on every down, that's perfectly fine. You know what? He can play that Alex Singleton role where he's only in on rundowns, or actually I shouldn't say Alex Singleton role, because Alex Singleton played way too much this year because he had the green dot and because he, knew the defense and whatever. But either way, one guy who I didn't touch on was Sternad. I know Sternad has a lot of supporters, and I'm one of them, man. I thought, next to Barton last year at the end of 2024, I was getting a little fed up with him. But man, oh man, this guy came in, and honestly, he was probably our best linebacker this year. Or actually,
100%.
He was our linebacker, our best
I
linebacker
agree.
this year. The problem with Sternad is he's going into his 7th year of his career, and he's never been signed to be a starter. Like, he's never been penciled in to have a big role on a team.
Ever.
It took 2 injuries in 2024 to Drew Sanders, who also doesn't exist, and Alex Singleton for him to finally get his chance. And you know what? I forgave him because I was like, you know what, Sternad, you were never supposed to be in this situation to begin with. But either way, our best game from our linebackers this year was Kansas City. And guess what happened? Alex Singleton didn't play. It was Sternad and Greenlaw pretty much the entire game. And Sternad wore the green dot, and they looked perfectly fine, in my opinion. Now, as far as should we re-sign him, I don't know. I just don't want to keep reinvesting into our biggest weakness. Like, I just want some new blood there, to be completely honest. Like, I know Sternad played incredibly well this past year, but he wants to go get paid, and deservedly so. I would want the same thing if I were him. I could see Carolina doing like a Josie Jewell type thing for him. 3 for 22. Yeah, why not?
No, makes sense. Did you give a grade to the linebackers? I can't remember if we did that or not. Give the linebackers a grade, even if we did it. Do it again.
C+.
Fair. Something that I want to bring up, because this comment has been staring me in the face, and I wanted to kind of get through this segment and not interrupt us and not interrupt myself as I am one to do. First of all, TW4313, I appreciate you watching the show. I do. I know you've watched it before. It's always great to have you. Thank you for being here. Peyton drafted a basketball player. True. It was a late 7th round pick. So let's not act like he is I'm a horrendous GM. TW, with all due respect, and again, thank you so much for watching the show, and I really do appreciate it, and I appreciate everybody that's watching that takes the time. I don't watch anybody's show. I don't watch my own show, so if you're watching my show, I appreciate you. So again, TW, thank you for are you fucking kidding me? You talking about a horrendous GM? TW, God, you're like, now I'm throwing everything all over the place. You got me all fired up and mad, so now I'm just going to be mad. He drafted Pat Surtain when everybody wanted him to draft Mac Jones, or they wanted him to draft Justin Fields. They wanted him to take Micah Parsons, and what happens? Pat Surtain, not even the second corner off the board, was the reigning defensive player of the year. Then later in that draft, you know who we took? Quinn Miners. You know who they didn't need? A guard, because they had Graham Glasgow and they had Dalton Reisner on the team. And when they drafted Quinn Miners out of D3 Wisconsin Whitewater, the motherfucker's blocking trees, all pro. Okay, we go later in that draft. Okay, TW, he takes Jonathan Cooper, not a need at that time. He had a heart condition. He got cleared, but a lot of teams were worried about it. On to his second contract and a massive part of this defense. You look at the year that they didn't have a first-round draft pick because of the Russell Wilson shenanigans, and that's the only reason that you can ever claim that he is a horrendous GM, even though there's not a single GM in the entire league that wouldn't have done the exact same thing in terms of Russell Wilson when it happened. Anyway, they go into that draft. They don't have anything until the second round, and they take who? Nick freaking Benito. who has been one of the league leaders in sacks over the last couple of years. 2 seasons ago, he was damn near a finalist for defensive player of the year, same as Pat Surtain. This past year, he was on the trajectory through the first half of the season to be defensive player of the year. They did that with a second-round pick, and the list goes on and on and on. If you expect your GM to hit on every single draft pick, then you need to start paying attention to football, because no GM has ever done that in the history of the sport. And the frequency with which George Paton has been hitting on his draft picks is insane. Give credit also to Sean Payton, because he has a word in that room. But for you to sit here and donate your time to me, which again, I am so appreciative for, but spew this nonsense saying that George Paton is a horrendous GM, my brother in Christ, get on your knees and say your prayers and pray to the Lord God Almighty that he blesses you with a little bit more common sense when it comes to this. And I'm sorry if this is coming off as mean, because I'm not trying to be mean, because I'm genuinely really grateful that you are watching my show, but I will not tolerate anybody ever trying to make the case that George Paton is anything less than a fantastic GM. Fuck. I lost my mouse, and now I can't scroll down the rest of the comments. There's probably a bunch of other people wanting to say things. Oh, Lord Almighty. Okay. Thank you, David. Yeah, okay, TW. He's done miracles on me. Okay.
I'm kind of a TW here. I'm kind of a TW
Thank
here.
you. I'm sorry, you're what?
I'm kind of a TW here.
And that was Kodiak. Thank you so much, Kodiak, for joining us tonight. Nah, just playing.
Listen, man. I get it.
Pause. Is he the best GM in the league? No. Has he benefited off of having Sean Payton as a head coach? Yes. Is he horrendous?
No.
Thank you.
No,
That's
Coach
all.
Payton's absolutely not a horrendous GM. But the people that don't like Payton, I get why. Because our sample of George without Sean Payton is not very good. That being said, you know what? They are still a very, very good tandem, ultimately. But you know what? My main gripe with George Payton is I feel like the past 2 years, we've just needed to take the bad areas of this team just a little bit more seriously. That's just all I'm saying. Over the past 2 seasons, you drafted a depth nickel in the first round. Okay.
That's fair. I get it. This is why I hate and love Mike at the same time. You motherfucker. Sean Payton developed his misses. You know what? You know what that means when misses get developed, Mike? That they're hits. So it doesn't matter. Hey, it doesn't matter how you get to the pot of gold. You just gotta beat the leprechaun there, okay?
Yeah. Oh my goodness, man! I thought we were running a bricked up segment. Yeah, so far.
No, because it gets me bricked down. I'm upset.
So you're flaccid, is what you'd say? Is that
it's hard. It's just pointed down.
Oh, okay.
It's a sad south erection.
Yeah. No, I get it. I completely understand. Get it. It's kind of like Riley Moss. Both sides have their whatever, but
exactly. All right. Speaking of bricked up, before I get you out of here, Kodiak, thank you so much for joining me, man. Always have such a blast doing shows with you. You're fantastic. Your content is fantastic. I love your TikToks. I wish you were on Twitter more, because you're such a gem there. You know, a lot of my opinions, I really just base them off of you. I'm like, what's Kodiak saying about this? That's how he feels. Okay, that's how I feel too. But before I let you go, I would be remiss, since we never really get to do shows just the two of us, if we did not now get to perform in what people are calling the greatest segment in all of Denver Broncos sports talk. This is Bricked. Kodiak, what has you bricked up?
I just want to ask you, Mario, who behind the Denver Broncos, who is your second favorite team in professional sports, or just any sport? Okay, is it
in In professional sports,
It could be
probably
professional,
Nuggets.
could be college.
Nuggets, Avalanche are a close like 2A, 2B.
All right, listen, guys. I am a member of Avalanche Faithful forever. It will always be a member of Avalanche Faithful. You know, Joe Sakic was what made me fall in love with professional sports. Same with watching Peter Forsberg at the tail end of his career, Adam Foote at the tail end of his career. But then the switch kind of flipped. And what was the Avs core after that? After we got rid of Matt Duchene, the Avs core was filled with guys like Nathan McKinnon, Cale Makar. I'll mention Mikko Rantanen. Why not? All right, fine. He deserves a mention, but Marty Necas. That being said, hey, Canada, how does freedom taste? Okay. For 364 days of the year, I love Nathan McKinnon. For 364 days of the year, I am the hugest Cale Makar stan on planet Earth. Okay. For 364 days of the year, I'm always talking about Devon Toews being the best, one half of the best pairing in the NHL, along with Cale Makar. That being said, Sunday morning around 8:30 a.m., like I said, Canada, how does freedom taste? All right. Listen, McKinnon, I love you. I think there's been too much slander on the timeline, and you know what? It makes me want to cry. That being said, I can't hear you because all I'm doing is plugging my ears and shooting my guns in the air, and just I'm out there on
Playing
my
Free
front porch
Bird.
like the Statue of Liberty because USA are the world champions of hockey. It's our sport. All right. What's a kilometer? Does anybody know? Does anybody know what a kilometer is? Also, when was hockey invented? Okay. What was it? 1850 or something? You know, maybe the cavemen invented ice skates. Who knows? No. Hockey was invented in 1776, baby. It's our sport now. 250 years. And 250 years later, hockey is now our sport. Thank you, Jack Hughes. Thank you, Connor Hellebuck, for the gold medal.
Fantastic. That's one of the best. That's one of the best breakdown segments ever. It's so good. I get. You know what? I can't even really follow that. So I'm just gonna keep it short and simple. I love the off season time where we're getting ready for the draft. We're getting ready for free agency. I love doing shows like this because it's like hope springs eternal, right? The Super Bowl is over. The hangover of what like how our season ended is over, and now we've moved on to be able to talk about how do we make our team better. We were one game away from going to the Super Bowl, and we were two games away from winning the Super Bowl. And you look at the recency of this team, where it started in the first year of the rebuild with Bo Nix's rookie year. They were supposed to win 5 or 6 games. They won 10, backed into the playoffs, but still went to the playoffs for the first time in a decade. Then they built off of the season before, where a lot of those one score games that they lost the year before, they won this past season. 14 wins in the regular season, number one seed, won the AFC West for the first time in over a decade. Again, we're a game away from the Super Bowl. So on this trajectory, they just keep getting better. So you're going to go from winning one score games to winning two score games to you're going to start blowing out your opponents. And this is where it all begins for the 2026 season. So you know what has me bricked up? The fact that the combine is upon us and I get to watch a bunch of young, muscular dudes run around and work out in their underwear and really get a good sense of where these guys are going to get drafted and who I think is going to make a great Denver Bronco. Because if I'm going to take a page out of my boy Mikey Respect My Co's playbook, I'm going to look for dudes with butts. I need to see some big butts, and I cannot lie, in this combine, because that's what gets me bricked up. Well, that, and then free agency, and then the draft gets me really bricked up. But mostly the dudes in their underwear working out. Show me that you deserve to be a Denver Bronco, young men. Go out there, put on the performance of a lifetime in your skimpy little underwear, and prove to me and prove to Broncos country why you should be part of Super Bowl. Fuck, what is it going to be? Is it 61? Is next year?
In Herbert Stadium, by the way, in Justin Herbert Stadium. So that's even more incentive.
Prove to me why you deserve to be on the Super Bowl 61 champion Denver Broncos roster. Get me. Thank you all so much for watching. I had to go ridiculous there. Yours was so good, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go dumb stupid with it. That's what it's gonna be. Anything else before I get you out of here, Kodiak? Go ahead and plug all of your stuff again, and any final thoughts or words of wisdom that you want to get across.
Man, it's, how do I put this? March 9th is going to be the day I turn 25. But that being said, it is one of my second favorite days of the year, not because of the fact that it's going to be my birthday, but because that is when the legal tampering period starts, okay? It's basically like Christmas Eve for me, but then actual Christmas is going to be April 23rd in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So yeah, either way, ride with the mob. And yeah, follow me on Twitter at Kodiak Broncos, YouTube at Kodiak Broncos, TikTok at Kodiak Broncos. But also, while you're there on my TikTok, I do have David and Mark's channels linked in my bio as well. So make sure to go follow them too, because honestly, they're smarter than I am. I'm just here for the vibes, man.
You and me both, man. That's why I had you on. Fantastic show. Thank you all so much for watching. This has been Altitude Adjustment. Coach Sean Payton, take us home. How we do, baby?
Gosh, your own little internet shows are driving me crazy.
Okay, well, we tried our best, and we will continue to try our best during the off season. My name is Mario Vitanzi. That is Kodiak. This has been Altitude Adjustment, and we all see y'all when we see you. Love y'all. Bye.
Hey, feel I'm in the mood for a switch up. I hit the function, hit the rose till I hiccup. I